Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to the studio, where today we're looking at the future of retail, but through the lens of UK fashion. And those sharp of eye will notice that we have recently released a UK fashion report, and so we're going to build off that. But rather than reading, we thought it'd be a good opportunity to get some face-to-face time today with Greg Kieran, who's from Commerce Tools, one of the supporters of the report. Greg, welcome to the high-tech, very cozy studio. Why don't we kick off by asking you just to introduce yourself and say a little bit about Commerce Tools as well.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, nice to be with you here this morning, Ian. Thanks for the quick intro there. So yeah, Greg Kieran, been with Commerce Tools now about 3 years. We are one of the pioneers of what's known as composable commerce. I now have over 500 customers using our platform. And it's a really interesting time, actually. We're going to be talking today a little bit of some of the things that we're seeing in the market. I would say in my 25 years of working in technology, possibly the fastest moving time I've ever seen in technology, of course, with the advent of Gen AI and other things. But yeah, really interesting time to be involved. And yeah, great to be here today.
Great. Well, look, thanks for joining us, Greg. And just in case anyone on the webinar hasn't already downloaded the report, fear not. We will drop you a link in the follow-up email, and you can get your hands on the report free of charge, of course. And for those who have read it, fear not, we're not going to reread every page. We are just going to pick up on some of the key points that came out of the report. And even though the report came out a few months ago, it's been interesting just seeing how the directions of travel have, if anything, accelerated since we wrote about them. I think the first thing it's worth just talking about is the market context. I mean, what we found throughout all of last year and sadly continuing into this year is that retail's having a very tough time, and fashion, which is by far and away one of the most sensitive aspects and categories within retail, has been having its highs and lows. The overall picture is that sales are relatively flat, which means that inflation is eating away at profits, costs are increasing, whether this is the cost of property, cost of employing staff, cost of raw materials, cost of tariffs. To be a global business selling to a demanding, savvy, digital consumer, this is a very tough time and not for the faint of heart. And I think we see this in our UK 500 rankings, where even as we rate the performance of our top 500 retailers, it is the fashion retailers and the grocers are the two sectors that stand out as the most battle-hardened, fit for purpose. So it's tough times, but the UK retailers and fashion brands have been doing so far well against those challenges. It's also a market with a very, shall I say, blended retail landscape, where the UK was one of the fastest adopting e-commerce countries, and it's been one of the fastest in terms of marketplaces, social commerce, and now generative AI. So we see the digital, but also the store is incredibly important. And by store, I mean store, high street, real life, impacting on how we see fashion. And then another thing we've tracked for several years is the sustainable and circular commerce. Now, this hasn't turned into vast amounts of money from heaven, because typically we're seeing that the retailers want to, the consumers want the retailers to pay for the extra costs. So they're demanding that we are more sustainable, but yet not wanting to put our prices up. At the same time, we see the rise of second-hand platforms, Vinted, obviously, along with many retailers, from Selfridges to John Lewis, providing circular opportunities for second-hand and repair. So a complex market, no massive changes other than the accelerating forces of AI, sustainability, competition, which we've seen before. It's just there's more of everything all of the time and quicker. So depending on where you sit, either a very, very exciting time or one of continual challenge. I thought it'd be worth pulling out one retailer that we featured in the report, and then another that we didn't cover but has been doing some great things. So first up is the ever lovely Burberry. Now, Greg, one of your favorite brands, I'm sure. Do you have your Burberry trench coat ready for autumn, winter, and stepping out at London, Paris, and New York Fashion Weeks?
It feels like it will be coming out soon, certainly in the as the weather's turning a little bit. But yeah, they're great brands. Actually, customer of Commercial for a while now, but yeah, I think you're going to talk a little more about how they're getting on.
Yeah, so one of the key things about Burberry we like is that they have shown a real flexibility and resilience to maintain their global position. So, we've covered before how they're a real pioneer in terms of phygital, so the physical meeting digital, and whether this is with click and collect, in-store returns, digital stock checks, behind the scenes, they've really embraced digital capability across their whole estate. Although they've had a relatively difficult time and embarked on a cost-cutting program, aiming to get some significant reduction into the business. We are seeing at the same time a sort of brand reset towards quote-unquote timeless British luxury, with campaigns like their It's Always Burberry weather and Wrapped in Burberry. And I think tying into a lot of the discussions around efficiency on the one hand and sustainability on the other, we see the brand looking to have fewer but bigger ideas just to simplify the proposition and the range, and then backing that up with more integrated store presentation and digital as well. And we're also seeing with this reduction of lines, a strengthening of the price just to push themselves, remind us that they are luxury rather than just fashion. Other things we've seen are, I think, the brand recognizing it does have a strong cultural place. So it's not just clothing fashion, it's British heritage. So we have the Burberry Gallery opening, I think, in 2027 at the V&A. So linking, fashion with heritage, but also with the cultural aspects. And overall, a sort of an all points move to blend brand, digital, commerce, and stores together in order to regain that global dominance. So I think overall, we can see that from the consumer perspective, Greg, as well as behind the scenes, this is a brand doing an awful lot at the same time, digitally and physically, in order to defend his position.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the important thing is making, recognizing what needs to be done. And, they obviously brought in a new CEO last year as well, and are focusing on, the right things to sustain the brand. And I think you mentioned there as well about going back to their core. I think that, understanding your customers, understanding your place, and understanding your, how storytelling can come into that, I think is a really important direction. I know we're going to be talking a bit more in a minute about the sort of role of these different channels, in particular with store and online. But yeah, really interesting. Yeah.
Well, I thought it might be worth, just before we dive into the the general points. Let's have another quick look at another fashion brand that is beaving away. This time, maybe not at the same luxury heights as Burberry, but certainly one that's capturing a big part of UK. So we have Frasers now reaching number 8 in our fashion top 50, getting very significant traffic, but themselves, maybe in a parallel to Burberry, looking at what they're calling an elevation strategy to try and get more premium brand relationships in play. And while everybody else is doing pretty statically in terms of turnover, they managed to increase their profits by about 3%. So despite a revenue decline. So again, the operational side, increased efficiency, better and more effective retailing is maintaining and growing profit, even as revenues drop a little. We've seen the introduction of a loyalty scheme. We've seen the introduction of a retail media program as part of their Elevate strategy. There's a new app being launched. So again, very, very busy in terms of technical and digital capabilities behind the scenes, and at the same time looking to bring on more premium partners as well. Also accompanied, back to your point, Greg, by a few senior staff changes. So overall, I think we can see that this has been quite a busy time for Frasers as well. So front office, brand elevation, behind the scenes efficiencies and capabilities. Is this what it takes to succeed now, Greg? Just doing everything all the time, everywhere?
Yeah, certainly. I think again, it's an example of a brand and a company who are, very acutely aware of what's needed. They are, of course, expanding internationally. They're also doing something that a couple of other customers of ours are looking at the moment, which is moving into the sort of financial services side. So with Frasers Plus as a payment service, just gives them that additional avenue, the different revenue stream, and of course allows their customers to get some benefits from that, driving loyalty to their brand. So one of the other thing, I know we're talking more about stores in a minute, but one of the things we've also seen with Frasers as they've rolled out our platform is they're also starting to think about the role of the store. So, whereas in the past a store might have just been a direct reflection of what was sold online, I think those forward-thinking brands now are really kind of starting to think about what is the role of the store. It doesn't have to necessarily be just a replication. Many of them, of course, are offering now an extension or a complementary services in store. It's a chance to come into the sort of the store and speak to a sales associate who's perhaps more knowledgeable. Not to mention, of course, combining those types of click and collect journeys or buy online, return in store, but also more of an experiential type of retail focus. So yeah, just one of the things I think we're going to see more and more of over time actually is the idea that the store isn't just a copy of online. It's going to be something different and something to draw in consumers.
Yes, I mean, we've seen from our Consumer X research that 71% of UK consumers still want to buy their fashion in store often. So this is, always, most of the time, and often. So it's still the bulk of people. So the high street is very important, but as you mentioned, the expectation now is that the consumer can drive the store with the same capabilities as she would drive maybe an e-commerce order. So things like full visibility, control over the package in flight, ability to get instant refunds, click and return. All of these kind of capabilities we now take for granted are so widespread in the sector that if you don't have them, it sort of makes you look like you're trying to annoy the consumer on purpose. But I think you made the point that the store isn't just an analog of digital or vice versa. So when you're looking at the store experiences, how are you seeing this change, or what are the factors in store that you think are important to the consumer?
Yeah, I know we're going to talk about this on the next slide. I think it was just there are a number of journeys there, Ian, that you talked about that consumers now have become, more and more sort of expecting, which is simple things like BOPIS or click and collect. So buy something online and pick it up in the store. What that does is a couple of things. Of course, it gives the consumer a chance to to actually get their hands on the goods perhaps a bit quicker, or maybe avoid a delivery charge. But also from a brand perspective, once you're in the store, gives them a chance to perhaps upsell or recognize you as a loyal customer and maybe give something else. It's not just about giving discounts. It might be some other type of experience that you can kind of get through the store that you just can't do online. I was actually in the Levi's store over the weekend trying to buy a pair of jeans. They didn't have my size, and the store associate was able to say, well, you know what, we can get those delivered for free to your house by tomorrow, which was fantastic. So this is what we call the endless aisle, meaning that even if something isn't available in the store, it can very easily be, from the extended range provided later. And of course, then particularly with on the fashion side of things, the ability to buy multiple items or different examples of a product, so maybe different sizes, knowing that they may not all be right for you, and then being able to very easily return those in store. So those are some simple examples. And of course, from our perspective, what we see is having the right technology is super important to unlock those types of channels. So those kind of things have been possible for a while, but actually marketeers want to be able to turn on these new offerings very, very quickly. And that's the difference between having the right technology and perhaps some legacy solutions, is that you want to be able to react. And whether that's from a new brand you may have acquired, or you're opening a new market, there may be some of these pieces you want to be able to do very quickly. Talking there about Frasers and opening their Frasers payment solution, being able to turn those on quickly as well is really important, as well as other payment types like maybe Apple Pay or other things. So having this ability to pivot quickly, have the right technology, have a variety of different offerings in store, online, and have those complemented is definitely something that's very, very top of mind.
And also having the capabilities so that for the member of staff you mentioned at Levi's, instead of them thinking your computer says, no, I don't know how to use it, making sure that the sort of colleagues' own systems, the behind the scenes capabilities, can be rolled out over thousands of people easily, rather than having this gap of capability between the customer saying, well, I know how to do my app, why can't you do it? And the store associate being superhuman and able to do everything. Now, when we were talking about this before, Greg, I was sort of pushing you a bit to say, oh, multi, omni, unified, they're all a bit of a muchness as we were looking at the report. So you kindly said, no, unified commerce is a thing, and I would explain it to you. So we have the slide, and our eager ears are awaiting just to get a better understanding of what unified commerce is and how we get to it.
Yeah, so I think if you think back to times when you and I were younger, Ian, and there were only stores, then of course
and there were no computers at all.
Exactly right. So it was just in store, and in fact, where I started my career was selling POS systems, which were hosted in each individual store. And of course, as time went on, the internet came along, and people started offering online offerings, online sort of digital sales. To begin with, those are very, very separate, and the technology stacks were completely separate, and hence why you'd have a very different experience as a consumer, or even a store associates when those extra channels were added on. And as you mentioned earlier, a lot of brands now want to add new channels like ordering through an app and some of those sort of far out channels that people are looking at these days. So when that sort of morphed into what we called Omnichannel, which was making the integration of those different technologies simpler. It's still different technologies, and it's behind the scenes. I would think of it as like a swan swimming along the water. What you see is the graceful swan at the top, but actually underneath it's kicking its legs like crazy. Well, that's kind of what's happening with Omnichannel a lot of the times, is it to make it feel seamless to the consumer. there's actually a lot of heavy lifting going on behind the scenes and synchronizing data and connecting this to that. And that can, again, be pretty disruptive. It can be expensive for the brands. And we can all think of good examples where, like at the MyLevi's example, it was very, quick for the store associate to be able to look up on a tablet. I had a quick glance over her shoulder. I could see what she was looking at there wasn't the same as the POS technology. So she was already interacting with multiple different pieces. She made it feel very seamless to me. Moving into unified commerce, really what that's about is very much a chance for the first time ever. And that's only really been possible, I would say, in the last sort of 12 months or so. And that's something that Commerce Tools is heavily focused on with our new in-store product. And so you can now actually have your digital commerce serve all channels. Now, what that means from a consumer point of view is that when you interact either online through the app in the store, you know that you're going to get exactly the same information presented. The same for the store associates. When you're in store, they're able to look up stock online. If you're bringing a product back, they can see what payment method you use. They're only looking at the same information, the single record of the customer. They can see what payment method you use. They can potentially return back to the same payment method. So for the first time ever, having that same one technology stack serves all of your channels, maybe including a contact center of the type of brand that has a heavy kind of customer service channel, really does unlock a lot of speed, a lot of agility, a lot of cost saving for the brand, because it now means they only have to maintain the one technology stack. So that's really how we define unified commerce, is that sort of evolution of things. And again, that's only really been possible in the relatively recent times.
That's great. Now, why aren't people all rushing and doing this now? So it sounds so straightforward. It also sounds like a logical progression of where digital has been going, excuse me, for the last 20 years. So on the basis that people don't want to be left behind, there must be some factors that holds back adoption. So what are the things that we need to eliminate in order to move to a more robust unified commerce world?
Yeah, it is challenging. I guess brands have invested heavily in POS in-store technology over the years, and they want to maximize the investment they've already sunk into those products. It can also be a relatively large, program to consider replacing that. So again, when you've got hardware in store and staff who've been trained on using things and putting it in a certain way, to move that to a new solution, of course, has to be done at the right time with a minimum disruption. So again, we're seeing customers of ours now move to that solution because they see the enormous benefit from it. But it's understandable that can't all happen in one go. And technology teams are constantly in the background trying to prioritize what makes the most sense, and they're often juggling. And in many cases, you have a completely different team running the in-store technology to the above-store technology, and they're trying to prioritize which does it make sense to invest in. So it's like all things, that there is always 100 things that companies would love to do. They have to prioritize and do that at the right time.
So think of 100 other things. No sooner than do we all agree, hey, let's go to unified commerce, next activity. The world has turned a few more times, and so we have the usual question of what's next. Now, we've managed to chat for 25 minutes without mentioning the most important word ever, which is, of course, AI. So thinking about what's coming next, Greg, there are a couple of factors that you thought were important for immediate consideration wherever you are in terms of your technology or customer journey. And this is around zero-click search, agentic commerce, which we've heard a lot about, and the hot topic of shoppable ChatGPT. Other AIs are available, Perplexity offers shopping, etc., etc. So you've picked some hot button items there. Let's have a chat. First of all, tell us what each of them might be and why they're so important to us.
Yeah, so I mentioned right at the top of the call, and yeah, as you say, I can't believe we got through 25 minutes without mentioning it again. But since I think everyone can probably remember where they were when ChatGPT first launched to the public, it was around November 2022. I remember showing it to my kids and thinking, as somebody who's worked in technology, this is something that's going to change it's I think evolving quicker than any of us can imagine. If you think now as a consumer when you go to, let's say, Google, or as you say, other search channels are available. But when you type in a search, often now what you're getting is the AI version of the answer. What that's meaning is having a significant impact on how consumers and brands, find each other. So if I was to type in, I want to search for a new pair of trainers, in the past, I would have seen a click through of probably 15, 20 websites on a page. Over years, of course, they became elevated by sponsorship and other things. But now, of course, the first result you often see is a much longer AI-based description. And that's what we call zero-click search, meaning that the actual brand sites are either further down the page, or consumers just aren't clicking through to those brands as much, because actually they're getting the information they need from that initial research in a much more verbose AI-based answer. So that's what the first one is all about. And some reports say that that's already about a 25% decline on what it was, about 18 months ago. So again, really important for brands, and I know a lot of the customers that we talk to are already thinking about this. How are they going to evolve? How are they going to be prepared for this significant change in initial product research and discovery? How are their brands and their products going to be found in this new world where AI is taking over certainly that initial part of the product search?
I mean, I think the positive aspect here is that we go from being sort of slaves to SEO to be more storytellers, where we need to bring the brand alive. The difficulty is you have to bring it alive product by product, attribute by attribute. So, for example, when you say you are a sustainable brand, really, were you just bought by private equity 3 years ago, and this is a fake reinvention of a mythical non-story? Or do you have that heritage, and if so, where's the benefit of that for your customers? Same with all of the sustainability criteria, is bringing those to life. So I think there's, for the credible end of fashion, where you do have a story and a purpose and integrity, this could be releasing you from the shackles of fighting out for SEO. But I think the jury, if there is a jury, is still out on that point.
I think you're right. I think the future will definitely be won by the brands who do have a strong story, who can drive loyalty, which, like we said earlier, isn't just about giving discounts. It's about adding value. What else can you give to your customers, your loyal customers, that they perhaps can't get anywhere else? What other experiences could they get by coming direct to your brand and bypassing this sort of world where only certain products will be found? At the same time, it is still going to be important for companies to enhance the product information that's stored. We're going to talk next about agentic commerce, and really what that means is that in a future shopping world, as these AI agents are popping up and evolving very, very quickly, whereas initially they all exist in silos and don't necessarily talk to each other, the concept of agentic commerce is that, imagine those coming together and then allowing an overall experience to take place. So as a consumer, I might just type in, I'll give you an example. I might be saying, oh, it's my wife's birthday next Thursday. I want to take her out for dinner. An agent would be able to, an agentic experience would allow multiple different systems to talk to each other. So it might start by searching, knowing where I live, knowing where, within a 30-mile radius or a 30-minute radius of a taxi ride, it could potentially go off and book a taxi for me, book a restaurant for me, buy some flowers for me, have those delivered to the table, and do all of that as one overall. Whereas even though there's individual steps, agentic commerce is the idea that these can all be connected as a single search and a single experience. Another example.
Sorry, Greg. As a promise, we've sort of made this to customers before, when we've said, "Oh, give us all of your data, and our personalization engine will make these recommendations to you." Or, we'll know where you are, Greg. We know your nearest store, what you've bought for the last 10 years, and we'll make a suggestion for you. So all of that has been about push, with an ever more refined, relevant offering to the customer. Now that she's able to make a decision, so it might be, I want a pair of Levi's. I don't really care who I buy them from, but I want a size 10, 12, 14, whatever, and I want them short leg, delivered tomorrow. I don't care if you have to go to 6 different stores, sale, return, etc. Just sort it out for me. So this is the attractive Jetsons type world we're now talking about. What do your platforms have to do or be ready to do to enable agentic? So, for example, we've talked about some of your clients. How do you help them be ready to be the agent for the customer rather than simply an optimized spam engine sending promotions and offers?
Yeah. Well, the first piece is having the baseline technology to support this type of approach. So I mentioned earlier that Commerce was a pioneer of what's called composable commerce. And what that means is that there are different components in your overall technology stack that specialize in certain areas. That's the first thing. But the second and most, and maybe more important part is that it's extendable by design. That means that because none of us know what the future will hold, is having a technology that can flex and that can easily be extended to do other capabilities is the most important part. And lo and behold, along comes the concept of agentic commerce. We very recently launched what's called an MCP, Commerce MCP. That's essentially a protocol that enables agents to talk to each other. It was something that Anthropic came up with as a sort of almost a standardization to say, well, how can AI agents all talk to each other in a common language? That's something we've launched now, and actually unlocks this concept of agentic commerce. What brands will still need to do, and you touched on it a second ago, Ian, is enhance the product information for each of the individual products. An AI agent isn't necessarily going to be looking at images of those products, but what it will be looking at is the descriptions and perhaps the delivery capability and the availability of that, and maybe as well as simple things like size and color and what have you. But to be able to be surfaced in a agent to agent type of experience, that's what brands need to be looking at, is really kind of enhancing and enriching the information that the products are to make.
So it's like, is this the time to start reinvesting in our PIMs, our content management systems, content production, integrating all of that very much into the backbone of the business rather than simply at the last minute gilding the lily for SEO? Sounds like we're about to have a new cycle of that.
Very much, yeah. So that's sort of, as you say, the systems behind the scene that are somewhat invisible to the consumer. That's where the heavy lifting will need to get done. And because, as you say, the shopper of the future. I mean, I personally still think that there will still be a place for, as you mentioned, brands. That if I want to go directly to a brand website because I shop there and I get some benefit from doing that direct, there'll still be the in-store. We've talked heavily about that today. I definitely think that's going to enhance it in many ways. But there will be this new optional way of buying things, and some maybe younger consumers, as they come into the world and in the shopping world, will start to become normal for them. We've already seen.
I mean, that brings us on to the shoppable Chat GPT, which again I haven't been able to actually play with yet because it seems it's US based at the moment. But if anyone has got access before me, do let me know. I'd love to look over your shoulder at it working in real life on UK retailers. But here we take a step, if you like, that merges your first 2 points, which is that the search engine becomes a doing engine, and that doing engine can do more than just show you a list of tasks that you, the human, have to do to buy. So we're now going from idea or question through refinement and knowledge to actually being able to shop, and not just within the constraints of a single store. So is this now the, if you like, the logical conclusion of the headless journey, which is that you've chopped the head off, thrown it away, and now we have ChatGPT working for the customer, driving everything? Is this the full stop of the 25-year digital retail journey, Greg?
I don't know if it's a full stop to it. It's certainly another new channel, and the timeliness of this is that just last week actually, ChatGPT, OpenAI, announced their instant checkout, initially available with Etsy, but will allow a consumer to essentially research a product and without navigating away, be able to hit a button that says buy, and with their saved credit card or digital payment details, be able to transact directly. I do still think, we talked earlier about unified commerce. From a brand perspective, there's still going to be a desire to bring all channels together in a more unified way. And you know, arguably, this extra ChatGPT way of doing things isn't necessarily going to solve that problem from a brand perspective, but it's an extra channel, right? And I think in the same way we've seen additional channels being added on, new ways to buy things, it's still going to be desirable. I don't think it's necessarily the full stop. I think it's an extra piece of capability, and it'll certainly be interesting to see how it tracks and who the winners are.
But also, you know, hearing you say that, you know, you get a very clear description of it. There's a lot of hype for very little marginal utility. So as a consumer, I'm already used to one-click purchase with Amazon, double click on my phone to buy with Apple Pay, paying by, you know, one-click checkout, the Shopify checkout, Stripe checkouts. We're already in a world of very easy see to buy. So I think in a way the hype is running a bit ahead of us in terms of it being my digital butler slash valet slash factotum. So I was teasing a bit, thinking it's the end of the journey. I think very much start of the next chapter is exactly that. Greg, we've covered an awful lot. I think, you know, one of the key things to come from this is that the fashion retailers in the UK are perhaps the most advanced in terms of the outbound product marketing capability, the store integration, the working across all channels, you know, from social marketplaces, circular commerce, own stores, digital, mobile. They really are not just leading the UK, but leading globally. On top of which, we've then seen the continued move to omnichannel and in the latter part, some of the AI impact. So it's set us up very much for an ongoing year of research and looking to next year's updated UK fashion report. So, Greg, massive thank you for joining us. I will just close with the very lovely cover of the fashion report. A reminder that if you're so impatient you can't wait until the post-webinar email, just head over to InternetRetailing.net and reports, and you'll see the report there available to download free of charge. For everybody else, let's pretend that it's AI, even though we know it's us behind the scenes. We will send you the link so you can enjoy the report. Any questions or comments, drop us a note, research@retailx.net, and we'll be happy to incorporate ideas and thoughts into that. And of course, any other questions we haven't answered today, drop us a note and we'll pick those up on InternetRetailing.net. So all that we do now is just thank Greg one more time, both for the support in the production of the report and for joining us on the webinar today. Greg, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Ian. Yeah, good to speak to you today.
Pleasure. And with that, we wish everybody a happy trading, and you'll get your copy of the report very soon.